The evolution of money, guys. You see where it starts, and this is where it finishes. What's up, guys? It is Monday, March 18th, 2024. We're at the Bitcoin block height of 835,282. TikTok next block, we are 5,000 or less than 5,000 blocks away from the Bitcoin halving. If you guys don't know what the Bitcoin halving or halvening is, Google that. We go about 1,000 blocks a week, something like that. You take 144 times 7. That's how many blocks we usually get around a day, every 24 hours. 144 times that by 7. It's just a little over 1,000 blocks. So which means is we're less than 5 weeks away from the halving. Crazy. Anyways, as you can see from the title, whatever the title is, I don't know what I'm going to name it. Diversifying. Should you diversify? Interesting question. You know, I come from the trad-fi background, traditional finance. I went to school for finance, and we all know the old, it pains me even talk about this. We know the old trad-fi portfolio, the old 60-40, good old 60-40, right? I know you all know it. For a couple of you that don't, the 60-40 is 60% stocks, 40% bonds. In particular, 60%, what they suggest is 60% the S&P 500, and then the other 40% bonds. In particular, the 10-year Treasury. Not the 2-year, because that's too risky, I guess, too short term. But that means you're supposed to trust in the governments with the bonds, and you're supposed to trust in these companies. You know, and then as you get older, because quote unquote stocks are more risky and bonds are more safe, as you get older, you're supposed to take less risks and then change it over from 60 bonds, 40 stocks, or whatever you want to do. And that's the way. That's what they tell us to do. And it's sad, man. It's sad. And I'm talking about myself because I've done that a little bit. But when I got into metals, precious metals in particular, I was doing kind of a 60-40 remix of that, right? I was doing, 60% silver, 40% gold. Then I added the platinum, and I was moving stuff around. And then when I realized silver to me was undervalued at the time, I started increasing my silver holdings in comparison to my gold, relatively speaking. And then I got out of gold and started getting even more into platinum and stuff. And then during that same time, I started learning about Bitcoin. And then I applied the 60-40, I guess, 60% metals, 40% Bitcoin. And then I flipped it to 40% precious metals, 60% Bitcoin. And the reason I did that because of my age. I was in my mid to late 40s. I'm 49 now, but when I was 47, 48, I was like, man, I gotta hedge. Even though I love this Bitcoin thing, I'm getting older, and that trad-fi mentality came in, that diversify your portfolio thing came in, and you can't put your eggs in, all your eggs in one basket thinking and mentality came into play. But as I quickly found out, not quickly, but quick in retrospect, but I wish I would have did it a little quicker, is that Bitcoin defies all that stuff. Bitcoin is not traditional finance whatsoever. It's a brand new system. And that is why, as of today, I don't have any more metals. I have a 0% allocation. Now I have a couple of pieces. I'm talking about stuff in comparison to what I used to have. I had a large portion of my net worth in that, and it was encumbersome and heavy and stuff like that. But I went ahead and got rid of it, and it was tough to do when I did it. But now looking back on it, I wish I would have did it sooner. And let's go back a little bit, right? You know, we're relatively in our lifetimes, you know, because we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever age range group you're in. We're probably all in those 4 age groups, right? All of our lives we were taught this stuff. The 60-40, people buy real estate for an investment, and different businesses and all this other stuff. But let's get back to the basics. Money's main objective is supposed to be 2 things. Number 1, a store of value, and number 2, a medium of exchange. Well, the fiat currency, which is quote unquote money, because if you walk down the street and ask 100 people what money is, they're going to tell you fiat currency, which is the only money, quote unquote, that we've ever had chosen for us, by the way, because we've always chosen the hardest money on the island or the area, you know, after bartering. And we figured out that it's very hard to barter. I think the number is over 100, a group of 100 or a village of 100 people. It's just very difficult for the timing and everything else to barter. So when we started finding money, we started floating towards the hard money, the thing that is scarce and hard to get and hard to make. And we end up going with gold, precious metals and stuff like that. But even though it worked for thousands of years, we started making those paper notes, aka the debt notes, the fiat currency, and the rest was history. And this small sliver of history that we've had, the fiat currency, in the big picture is nothing. Now in our lifetime, we've always had it, and we've had different versions of it, obviously, with the, you know, debit cards and credit cards, and now we got the Apple Pay, Venmo, all this stuff. It's still fiat currency. It's not doing half of its job. It's not doing the other half. And the most important half is the store of value. It's just not doing it. So we all know the story of Richard Nixon and what he did on August 15, 1971, when he took us off the gold standard. And I always direct people to WTF Happened in 1971 website, where it shows you, let me see, they show you some crazy charts of what happened, what was going on before and after we got taken off the gold standard. Even though it was officially taken off the gold standard, honestly, guys, in that time period, we were already doing it up until that point. Even when the Bretton Woods Agreement first got launched, you know, back in, you know, what was it, 1930 or 32, when they tried to take the gold from us. Executive Order 6102. Even then, we were debasing the money when we pretty much stole everybody's gold at $20 and something cents, and then the next year we valued it at $35 or whatever it was. We were even doing it then. Human beings just do that. When you put money in the hands of humans, we're just corruptible, man. I mean, if you had a money printer at your house and you knew you can get away with it and just print as much money as you can, you know, quote unquote money, fiat currency, you never know what people would do, you know. Just saying, man. Even the most honest person can be dishonest in a situation they're put in. But up until that point, before we had the fiat currency, we had the hard money, and it was very hard to corrupt. So what would happen with the money, the real money, the gold and silver and stuff? We could take it across time and space, right? Whatever you can buy with a 1 ounce of gold, whether it's a fine man suit, a certain amount of barrels of corn or whatever, you can take that 100 years later and still buy the same thing. Well, unfortunately, when they took us off the gold standard and started printing more money or more fiat currency than we had gold and silver, particularly gold, we were robbed of that first store of value situation, and nobody even knew it. A lot of people to this day, when I ask them about inflation, they tell me pretty much the same thing. It means prices are going up. They'll blame it on a certain president or somebody in charge. They'll blame it on supply and demand. They'll blame it on COVID. They'll blame it on, that's just the way it is. And it's not really bad because they're getting a 2 or 3% raise with that 2 or 3% inflation. The problem is it really hit us in the 1970s, late 70s, early 80s, when Paul Volcker had to do what he had to do and raise the interest rates up to the point or a little bit past the inflation rate. And we can't do that today for many reasons, and we all know why, right? We cannot do it. The system would just absolutely break. It would just break, you know. And so when you're looking at the system the way it is now, we printed so much money in 2020, March of 2020. We've been printing in 2021, and I told everybody, this is not going to work good, man. This is not going to be good long term. And it's coming to fruition now, where all these dollars that are out here are chasing the same and less goods, especially in particular in 2020 and 2021, when, well, it's 2020 in particular, when they shut everything down. Nobody was working. They were printing a bunch of money, giving people free stuff. We weren't making anything. The only thing we were shipping out at the time, for the most part, was our dollars. That's our biggest export in America. Man, what does this country come to? And it's just, it's a terrible system, So before 1971, you know, it would happen slowly between 1930s and the 40s, all the way up to 1971. But before 1971, when it really hit us, when we really legally took us off the gold standard, people were not thinking about money. All they were thinking about was how good life is and traveling and going places. Because again, at that time, even though it was a slow leak back in the 30s and even 1913 it started. That's when the Federal Reserve or the Fed came about in 1913. It was a slow leak then. People were just thinking about life, man. They were thinking about doing things, nice things, and spending time with their family. Because again, even though it was a slow leak, they could save their money across time and space. They could just do it back then compared to now. In our short lifetimes, and between our 20s, because some of us are 20s, 60s, 70s, 50s, 40s years old, look at the debasement of our currency in our short lifetime. I mean, my goodness, guys. I mean, look at it, right? Look at what you could do when you were a kid with $100 bill. I talk to people about this all the time. $100 bill for me when I was a teenager, man. For those of you that don't know, I'm from Rochester, New York. I'm gonna give you a real life example. I'm from Rochester, New York. I used to get, we're famous for a lot of things, Kodak and all this other stuff. But something I really miss a lot is Nick Tahoe's. It's called a garbage plate. Pause the video and Google garbage plate. Yeah, it does look like garbage, right? Cheeseburgers, mac salad, french fries, home fries, but you can make it in different ways. We're home with a garbage plate. I haven't had one in 4 years almost. Oh man. When I was a kid, never forget it, I used to take a $5 bill and I used to buy a garbage plate with a drink. The garbage plate was $4.25 and the drink was 50 cents with free refills. Now, the last time I ate there in 2019, end of 2019, I believe it was $16. Don't quote me on that. I might have tipped them too. It's 15, 16 bucks just for the garbage plate, right? On top of that, the burgers were smaller. You got less portions, and the food itself, the quality of food wasn't as good. And also too, the cups they give you were smaller and you didn't get free refills. So again, guys, I'm not a mathematician. And I know you guys know this too. I'm just giving you a real life example for me. We all got real life examples, right? So after 1971, what do we have to do? We had to keep our purchasing power. Now, they can't come out and tell us that we have to be a part-time investor or want to be rich and all that, because that's when all these commercials and all these gurus started coming out in the 80s and the 90s and 2000s, time that I grew up and a lot of you guys did. all about real estate investing and being a business person. And, you know, my grandparents, my grandmother in particular, she worked at Kodak in the factory part of Kodak, and she made good money. She didn't have to care about that back in the 50s and the 60s. Again, it was a slow leak back then, but not the way it is after, you know, late 70s, early 80s. And she was okay, you know what I mean? She saved money, and she didn't have all these fancy portfolios. I think she had a little stocks and stuff like that, but she just saved in cash, and she could do that for the most part a lot better than we can today. And that's what she did, to save your quote unquote money under the mattress type of thing. But as I started getting older and I saw her do that, I would want to do that too, but I just couldn't do it because the leakage of energy from that cash was absolutely ridiculous, and I had no idea why. Again, guys, I have a finance background. I went to school for 4 years. I went to I did a 2+2. I did a 2-year associates, and then I did a 2-year bachelor in finance. And I've done it all, man. I remember I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm sure 90% of you guys did too. And that book changed my life, man. You know, I wanted to get out of the rat race, and I did. I did get out of the rat race. But even when I did, I just noticed that no matter how much I tried to do, I couldn't get ahead. And what do I mean by ahead? I wanted to be, you know, I wanted a lot of things, you know what I mean? But the dollars that I went and saved up and all that stuff just wasn't working. This is when I got out of the TradFi stuff, right? I started saving in cash because I felt like I didn't like having someone else hold my cash. So I always liked doing what my grandma did, putting money under the mattress, so to speak. Except what I did was I figured out how much my bills were a month, and then I figured out how I could become financially free. So if my bills were $3,000 a month, I would take 31 days, or 3,000 divided by 31 days, 100 something bucks a day. That's what I needed to survive. And I would try to get these little businesses or little schemes I had, you know, buy a car, flip this, do this or whatever, create a little bit of passive income or something like that, so I can have enough coming in so my bills were paid, right? And I did that, plus 10% just in case I had a bad month or two or whatever. And I did that, but again, my expenses were going up slowly but surely, and I never knew why. I never knew about the leakage. And again, I went to traditional finance school, and so, you know, I read that book, and I got into real estate. You know, I got into a lot of stuff, but even then, I was just like, wow. And I knew about gold and silver, but I didn't listen to Robert Kiyosaki. I wish I did. This is early 2000s, but I didn't, and I didn't get involved until 2020, when I pretty much had to. Kind of like, it's similar to Michael Saylor. He got into Bitcoin in August 2020, summer 2020. I got into precious metal about a month before he did, into Bitcoin. And once I found out about gold and silver, I was like, wow, this is the stoppage of the leakage of my money. This is what it is. And then I started learning about why I needed that portfolio, because again, you have to be a part-time asset manager just to keep up with inflation. Not even to make money, just to keep up with inflation, because they were debasing our currency by printing, borrowing, and overspending. It's all comes from DC, guys. And so again, I was diversifying all that stuff, like I said earlier. But then when I found out about Bitcoin and I went 100% in, I get a little emotional about this, man. But it changed my life, man. It absolutely changed my life. And now that I know about it, and I'm getting a better understanding every day, because I'm still learning every day. I know Bitcoin is the way. Bitcoin is not inflationary. They don't debase Bitcoin. It's the exact opposite of the system that I went to school for and I learned about and I lived in for all my life. It's the exact opposite. It's fair and equitable energy for everyone. It's a program that anybody can get in. It's a club that anybody can get in. And when you really understand it, when people ask me, am I diversified? I ask them, what am I going to diversify into? What else am I going to put my money into? My energy? Am I going to put some into Bitcoin and then something else? There's nothing else to put it in. And I can't sit here and arrogantly say I've tried it all, because I can't say I tried it all, but damn it, I've tried a lot, man. And from everything I learned, because again, you don't know what you don't know, but you're talking to a guy that really studied money for a long time, man, since I was a kid. So again, I don't know everything, and I don't know what I don't know, but from what I know, and from what a lot smarter people than me know that study Bitcoin, it is the way. These dogs go crazy over here every time I walk by. It is the way. It is the only way. When I say what I say at the end of the videos, I don't say that just to hear myself talk or try to blow smoke up your butts, guys. And again, diversify into what, right? When you guys are diversified, that's a system that the traditional finance or the people that are above us want you to think that you have to be diversified. Because as long as you're diversified, that means you believe in their system. You believe in what they tell you. You believe that everything's okay, and you don't know the better about what true inflation is. That's why I'm on a mission. It ain't just about telling people about Bitcoin. Of course, that's the end goal. And of course, I want to take back our freedoms in our country, of course. But the main thing is I want to tell everybody they were lied to. You don't have to be diversified. When you had gold hundreds of years ago, were you diversified then? When there was no fiat currency? They told you, hey, that gold is pretty good, but you need to diversify in, seashells and salt. And I was like, why? Gold's the best. Maybe I have a little bit of silver and maybe a little bit of copper for little smaller items, but other than that, these metals are the best. And they were the best, and they did the best job that any money has ever done before that. But again, there's a new sheriff in town. And for the digital age, I don't want to be cliche and call Bitcoin digital gold, but it's that and much, much more than that. So, am I risk adverse? There's a difference between risk and risky, guys, okay? We all take risks. Is Bitcoin risky? I don't think it's risky. I think I'm taking a risk with Bitcoin, sure. It's a brand new asset. Let me tell you the difference between risk and risky, in my opinion. If I get on a motorcycle with no helmet, no protective gear on, and I'm going 140 miles an hour on the expressway with my hands off the wheel, and I know off the handlebars, and I know there's potholes all over the place. You think that's smart? No, that's risky. Very risky. Every time I get in my car, I'm taking a risk. But guess what I do to mitigate those risks? I make sure my car is safe. I make sure my brakes work. I make sure all the tune-ups and everything I need is done on the car. I put my seatbelt on. I adjust my mirrors. I make sure when I drive nice and slow at the speed limit. I look in my mirrors. I do everything I need to do to mitigate that risk, because everything's a risk. Me walking outside right now is a risk. It just is. So when people ask me, is Bitcoin risky? I would say, when you're looking at things from my point of view, when Bitcoin is the denominator, like I do, or Satoshi's are the denominator, I would say your portfolio is risky. Your fiat currency, your real estate, your entire portfolio denominated in this system that you're in today, this broken system, and you not educating yourself on what's going on in today's world is risky. So again, guys, I don't want to keep going on and on about this, but I think you guys get the hint. I think you guys understand what I'm saying. But I will say this, guys. If you don't understand and learn how the world works as quickly as you can, I don't know what to tell you, man. Watch videos, turn off Netflix, turn off the mainstream media, learn how the world works and learn how money works. Learn about this broken system. Don't take my word for it. Like we say in Bitcoin, don't trust, verify. I'm gonna leave you with this. Do your family and your legacy a favor and study Bitcoin. Study it. Read books, watch podcasts. I say the same thing every video. I tell you to study Bitcoin. I still see people that I follow and that leave me comments, and people that I watch are still buying other stuff besides Bitcoin. I'm not telling you not to buy other things and only be Bitcoin. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, when you know, period. That's just what it is. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And again, guys, you work you know what's off for your money. You work your tails off for your money. And that's energy. That's what it is. You know, your blood, sweat, and tears, your legacy. Whether you got it in metals, real estate, whatever you got it in. But I'll tell you one thing. The one thing you need to think about putting it in is the best way to save. And for me, the only way to save. And that's Bitcoin. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace and love, guys.